Welcome to Fun Health with your host, Dr. Tanya Gold, your happiness doctor. Dr. Gold is a medical doctor who specializes in natural medicine and has been in practice for over 23 years. She's also a registered yoga teacher, public speaker, and published author. Dr. Gold has transformed thousands of lives through her ability to make wellness fun using her behavioral associative conditioning method and new 20-second workouts. If it's fun, it'll get done. Dr. Gold believes you're not a diagnosis. Your health matters. Know you're not alone. Dr. Gold cares. Remember, you're a bright, shining light in this world. Keep shining.
Hey friends, I am so excited to welcome you to the Fun Health Podcast. We have this amazing guest. He's a great friend and a person and a leader in this world that just changing lives. So I want to welcome you, Dan Dominguez.
Hello, Tanya. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to reconnect. You know, it's so fun to have met you in December, and I'm glad we've continued that connection and have kept in touch. Did a little bit of work with you on your YOS, and now I get a chance to meet your audience. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And it is a true honor. So I want to tell you a little bit about Dan Dominguez. He is the CEO and founder of the Why Not Leadership and a passionate advocate for genuine connections and the power of why, which he'll tell us more about. With over 30 years of leadership experience, including serving as an Army Airborne Ranger and Logistics Officer and National Sales Director for Baxter Healthcare, Dan has consistently demonstrated his expertise in strategic leadership and impactful sales management. As Chief Growth Officer at Y Institute, Dan scaled their certification program tenfold, guiding the international growth of the Y discovery. His approach to success is grounded in making a positive impact, challenging the status quo, and delivering innovative solutions that help others move forward faster. Dan believes in doing things differently to create leaders who lead teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Armed with a business degree from the University of New Mexico and an MBA from St. Joseph's University, Dan is dedicated to helping people-centric leaders unlock their full potential. If you're looking to understand the power of your why and transform your leadership approach, reach out to Dan for a transformative journey of growth and purpose. Well, welcome, Dan.
Wow. You know, I've never had someone read my bio so deliberately and so well. Thank you so much, Tanya. That was it was fun to listen to. And I was like, wow, I put that in there. And you know what? She's highlighting it all. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's such a great intro. I love it.
You're welcome. And you do, honestly, I was reading it. I'm like, wow, accolade, all these amazing things. So I'm so excited to hear more. So I was thinking if you can share a bit about the Y Institute to begin with. And for our listeners, if they're not familiar, what it is and how you got into it.
Yeah. Well, so Y Institute is the company that I spent the last 4 years with. So that was founded by my good friend, Gary Sanchez. And, you know, I'll tell you how I got involved because that's actually a really great story. So Gary Sanchez had been my dentist for 23 years. And we were good friends. We were members at the same country club. We played golf together. And, you know, about 5 years ago now, I decided that I didn't want to stay in my corporate career. So I had made a decision to leave and do something different. Well, Gary happened to be playing golf one Saturday that I was there, and I had a toothache. So I call it the toothache that changed my life, Tanya, because I'm sitting there and I've got a sore tooth. I see him. And of course, you know, you do this to your friends, right? You're a doctor. You know that because people take advantage of we take advantage of our medical field friends. And I grab him, I'm like, Gary, I've got a toothache. Can you get me in on Monday? And he does what every friend does. He's like, yes, call the office. We'll get you in. So he got me in on Monday and I had made my decision to leave. A lot of people had noticed that Dan was around a lot at the country club. I was playing a lot of golf because I wasn't working anymore. And he says, hey, what's this? I hear that you left your corporate job. And I said, yeah, I've decided to do something different. And so, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, Gary, but whatever I do next, I'm going to love it. And he says, well, do you know your why? So that's how my journey began. He said, you've got to know your why. So Gary developed an algorithm to help people discover their why, their how, and their what. And he takes me through this process. And I'm telling you, Tanya, it changed my life. It gave me such an awareness of who I was. So as you mentioned during the intro, my why is to contribute, to make a difference in the lives of others. My how is to challenge the status quo. So how I contribute to others is by challenging them to do things different and outside the box. And my what is to help people make sense of things. So I took, when he said those three things were my why, how, and what, and my life made so much sense. Mm-hmm. And when my life made sense, I said, Gary, I want to help more people do. How can I help you get this out to the world? And at that time, he was about to retire from dentistry and go full time into the Y Institute. Mm-hmm. So he said, Dan, you're a really good sales guy. I could use a salesperson to help me grow this. So, that dentist appointment turned into, we went across the street to a Chinese restaurant and we had lunch afterward. My mouth was still numb. You know how it is when you come out of the dentist, right? Mouth is still numb. I'm trying to eat soup and not spill it all over myself. But we had a great lunch, shook hands, and a month later, I was his chief growth officer, spent 4 years with him and helped him 10X his base of coaches around the world. And I got to the point where, hey, Gary, I really love doing this and helping coaches, but I'm getting so many I'm turning down so many opportunities to coach others that I think I'm going to go be one of your coaches. And he couldn't have been more gracious. He's such a good friend. He says, Dan, I'm just glad you were here for 4 years. How can I help? And he helped me launch Why Not Leadership. And what I do now, Why Not Leadership, is I help leaders become even better than they already are through the power of self-awareness, through understanding themselves and their drivers, but more importantly, helping them understand their teams, the people they work with on a daily basis, so they can be even better than they already are.
That's fantastic. Wow. Very powerful story. And thank you for sharing that. I was like, amazing. So yes, and thank you for sharing that. Can you share a bit about your journey and what inspired you to become a motivational speaker, like on that realm from the Y Institute, and then how do you kind of branched out, or sharing a personal story as well? Yeah,
well, here I'll share I like to share this story because it's what drives me. Mm-hmm. We all talk about our why being it's bigger than us, right? Mm-hmm. So to get to that, we got to go back a little bit further. In September of 2019, I came home from a business trip. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I was a national sales director for a Fortune 100 company. Mm-hmm. I'm spending, more nights in hotels than I am at home. Mm-hmm. Because when you're the national sales director for a Fortune 100 healthcare company, and you're familiar with these people because you're a doctor, you see them. When Stanford was going to make a big purchase from our company, they wanted to see the national sales director. Right. So I'd get on a plane and fly to Palo Alto. Well, then Duke University Medical Center. So now I'm flying to North Carolina, and then Northwestern. So now I'm flying to Chicago, and I live in Albuquerque, and I'm not seeing my family near as much as I need to. So I came home from one of these business trips, Tanya, and my wife handed me my daughter's journal. She was 7 years old, turning 8 at the time. And she shares with me this journal entry where Sophia was talking about her upcoming birthday. And she was so excited about, because her friends were coming. We live on a small farm, so we have sheep and a horse and dogs and chickens, right? So she was excited about all her friends coming for her birthday party. But she got to a part in the journal that she says, unfortunately, my daddy couldn't be there because he had to work. And that hurts, right? You're like, ouch. Why is she already thinking that I won't be there? And then she, so that's the knife going in, right? And then she twisted it. She goes, and I wanted to call my dad and tell him thank you for the birthday party, but I didn't want to bother him because his work's important.
Oh my goodness.
And so that I realized right then and there, this isn't the path that I want to go down, right? I'm 7 years away from retirement. 7 years away from the pension, which very few companies have nowadays. And the pension there was very lucrative. 80% of your 3 highest years averaged out for the rest of your life. So you look at that kind of pension and you say, wow. And so when I went made my decision, everybody that I talked to said, "Are you crazy? You're 7 years away from the pension." And I said, "Yeah, I'm also 7 years away from having a 14-year-old daughter that doesn't know me." And that's just not worth it to me. I don't think it's worth it. So I made that decision. That's how Gary and I ended up meeting with each other. The reason I bring that up is I think there's a lot of things that are important in our lives, but I think we have to prioritize people. And we have to prioritize relationships, and we have to prioritize connection. I'm blessed. I get to have dinner with my family every night, just about. If I travel, it's because I want to. And I own my time, and there's a certain freedom that comes with owning your time. My coach talks about there's 4 kinds of freedom. There's freedom of time, freedom of treasure, right? Of having being able to spend money on what you need, freedom of people. So are you working with the people you want to work with? And then freedom of impact. What are you doing? So it's time, treasure, people, and purpose. And so those have to be aligned. And so in my world today, I choose where I spend my time. I get to do that. And I think people need to understand that nobody can pay you enough to control your time. And I can't imagine not being there for my daughter. I just came off of cross country season, so I talk about her all the time. She just won the cross country championship for her league, 2nd year in a row, and I coach her. I just went, one of her classmates that ran for us a couple of years ago just placed 2nd at state, and we got to go do that together. I'm able to have a date night with my wife. So time is important. Treasure is important. We need money. Absolutely. We live in a society where we have to trade money for the things that we want, but we don't need as much money as we think. And so you have to look at that trade-off. What are you trading your time for? And is it worth it? The other thing, because you wanted to hear something personal, is this really struck me. It was about a year after I had left my corporate job. And there was a gentleman who was one of my dearest friends at that company. He and I were in the same training class. We were hired in 2003 together, and we went through training together. And he came up the ranks with me. Every time I got promoted, I would promote him to join me. And so he was a fellow region manager, and then I became his boss, and then he led a region when I was the national sales director. And was an outstanding guy, always did what he said he was going to do, loved him to death. We talked probably, even after I had left that job, we talked once a month. And a year after I left, he had a heart attack. He was a year older than me, and he died in the snow with his dog while walking his dog the weekend before a quarterly business review meeting. And I'm thinking he's a couple of years older than me. That could have been me. My daughter could not have a dad right now. And so, those kinds of things kind of remind you what's important, and to value family, value time with the right people. And it's not, a lot of people talk about quality time. Well, I had quality time. Kids need time, right? Because before, she's 13 now. It was only, a few years ago, I was holding her in my arms, and she's a teenager. So, I think those are finding out what's important. Do you want time? Do you want treasure? Do you want the right people in your life? I'm blessed to choose who I work with. And I'm blessed to choose to make a difference in the lives of others. So people, purpose, time, and treasure are things I look for.
That is so touching. My heart is like, when you said that. First of all, cross country, I'm a runner too, so I can definitely relate. And my dad was my coach. So thank God he was a workaholic and then made choices once my mom completed her life to actually spend time with us running and just coaching us, along with the track team coach. And for you, it just sounds like you made that decision and you just seem happier and just, balanced, which is wonderful, and owning your time, which I think, people don't always realize. Some people trade time for money, and then they can't get that back, and then they don't know their kids as well. And you're actually not doing that. You're, taking care of your health, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. Well, actually, if you want to share, I know you're training your daughter. Are you running with her as well? Does that include that training, or what can you tell us about your health regimen, how you fit that in your busy schedule?
Well, absolutely. So I have a morning routine, and I think that's something everybody should have. And if you work with a coach, that's one of the first things they're going to ask. So I begin every morning with prayer. I start with prayer, and then I do reading. And then I journal. So I do that. That's my first 40 minutes of the day. And then what we call it, at our house, we have a staff meeting, because I do this before 6 o'clock. I wake up at 5. So by 6 o'clock, the family's up, and we call it a staff meeting. And I call it, staff stands for special time allotted for family. And so we have a staff meeting at 6 o'clock. Then, Sophia's up, Monica's up, we're having coffee, we're talking, maybe I'm grabbing breakfast, maybe I'm just getting ready for the day, getting my stuff together. But they leave for school at, 6:15, 6:30. So staff meeting's over. Then I either go to the gym or I go to mass. One of the two, and I do those in order. So I schedule my day so that I don't have a first meeting till 10 o'clock.
Wow.
And so I get to go to the gym. I get to go spend time with God, and then listen to someone tell me about what the readings meant, which is great. The great thing about being Catholic is the priest interprets it for you, and then you get to hear it, and then you can make your own decisions on it. So I do that. I try to do that almost every day. Once in a while, something will suffer. And it's like I was telling you earlier, today I knew that I had an extra meeting. And what's nice about being open till 10 o'clock in the morning is that if I need to talk to someone, I can say, hey, we can squeeze you in there. And so I did that today. So as my wife and I were having our staff meeting, I'm doing push-ups and sit-ups in the bedroom while she's getting ready. And at least, you get your heart rate up, you build some muscle tone, you feel better, and then you go have breakfast. And so those things are important. The other way that I do that, and do I run with her? Yes. Can I keep up with her? No. There was a time. So I have an older daughter. She's 35 now. I coached her in track, and she didn't run cross country, but I coached her in track. And back then I could run a 6-minute mile. And so I could keep up with most middle schoolers. Right. The really fast ones could beat me, but it was only the really fast ones. Today, I'm lucky if I can keep up with the back of the Packers. But that's okay. I'm also 22 years older than I was when my 35-year-old was in middle school. So it's kind of a fun thing. And they were 22 years apart. We had one daughter, raised her, got her through undergrad, and then we had our second daughter. And, so we're getting to do it all over again. When there's that sibling rivalry, and Sophia's, the older one says, well, Sophia's more spoiled. You guys have so much more now. You've got, you're in a much better. Yeah. And I said, but you got young dad. Sophia will never know what it's like to get beaten in a sprint by dad, because that is never going to happen. So you got young dad. She got better off dad. But, I think that what's fun is spending that time. We have such great memories of cross country and track, and you get to know all your kids' friends, which as a parent is so important. I get to know them because they're all on the team.
That's awesome. And you get to know your kids. So I think they both got dad, which is the greatest part. So thank God for that too.
I drink water every day. So my fitness, I love functional fitness, Tanya, Dr. Tanya, is, I will not bench press 250 pounds like I did when I was 18. But if I can do 25 push-ups, if I can move, if my granddaughter's about to run across the road, I can move quickly and go grab her, right? How many of us allow ourselves to put on extra weight and our knees hurt, and we can't even, if need be, save our grandchild, right? We need to be functional. And so I believe that that's important. And if you can be a little bit better than that, all the better. And a lot of it is, eating good food, drinking lots of water. How many times do people come to you and the first thing you say is you're dehydrated, right? You hear that so much. You've got to drink more water. None of us drink enough water. So I make it a habit to always have a water bottle in my hand. Make sure I exercise every day. I check that off every morning. So it's either I either go to mass and then go to the gym, or go to the gym and then go to mass. But I do both because that's important.
Awesome. Well, as we're saying exercise, for all the listeners, as you know, I routinely do this in my podcast because it's really important for us to get up. Many people may be sitting. If you're driving, of course, do not try to get up. But if you're able to, please stand up right now.
All right, I'm going to do it with you.
Yeah, please. So we're going to just roll the shoulders back, lift up the chest, and see if you can bring your heart forward. Again, sometimes we have a forward posture, which can increase our risk for falls. So stand tall and prevent a fall. And we're going to be bringing a beautiful smile to our cheeks. So if you can show me those pearly whites, there we go, little sparkle in those eyes. If you're able to, we're going to extend those arms all the way up. If not, you're just lifting the spine straight up, and big smile here. Just reach all the way over to your right. Oh, that feels so good. Stretch, and all the way over to the left. Oh, yeah. And gently back. If you're able to, again, just gently gazing up. And again, just see that horizon. Remember, when I look outside, it always looks different. It's God's tapestry, nature. It's just so beautiful. So looking at those heavens, the sky up there, and just a nice big smile, reaching forward now, just halfway forward. Stretch out that low back. Release those arms down. Oh, good. One more deep breath in. Inhale up again, arms up, and then exhale down. Just shake it out. Get the wiggles out.
All right. You gotta wiggle every day, right?
Gotta wiggle.
I love it.
Yeah, and this goes along with rebounding. So if you have a little trampoline, I do this on my bed sometimes, or if I'm at a hotel room, I'll just jump on their bed. But the idea is bouncing. Even if you don't jump on the bed, you can just bounce. Mm-hmm. And the bouncing movement helps the lymphatics. So it's boosting your immune system. It's fun. That's why kids who bounce, they have a lot of fun. They smile. Kids, adults, we can all bounce. That kid comes out to play. And the more playful we can be, the more longevity. And it sounds like you're doing that quite a bit, which is wonderful. Bringing in your joy with your time. So I had a few more questions. Let's get, and I did want to continue to say thank you for this, because I'm just getting so inspired and enlightened, because we learn from each other, and that connection that you were mentioning earlier is so critical to longevity and also impact. Like you made a choice, that pivotal moment where you're like, I'm in corporate and this is not working for me. That was my story as well. You made that choice to transition. It's scary. I get it. But what if you didn't? And God forbid, what if? Because I've heard those stories of people staying, and then they don't make it, or they get really sick, or something catastrophic happens. And it's like, what if they took a moment to pause and know that what would you do if you couldn't fail? If you knew that, you can do this, and you can. There's many ways you can follow people's, from various books and stuff like that. I know for me, just listening to people's stories of all kind of the big people, when we think of Oprah and Tony Robbins, but also the people that are like, they're still amazing. Maybe they didn't reach billions, but you don't need billions to live. I did the same thing. There's certain amounts you can survive well and have such a quality of life. So thank you for sharing that too.
Absolutely.
So what's one of the biggest challenges you faced in life, and how did you overcome it?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. I mean, you can point to a lot of them. I think that for me, making the decision to take an 80% pay cut and being so close to retirement, right? Because that's really what I did. It is amazing the amount of money they will pay you to keep you in a role where you don't own your time, and there was a value to what I was doing. I mean, it was a healthcare company. We were making a difference in patients' lives, but that wasn't what drove me. So going from that, the challenge is, okay, now we don't have that income anymore, and guess what, we gave up the pension, so that's not coming in 15 years, so you've got to find something else to do and make a difference. So balancing all those things out. So I've been on a really really deep self-awareness journey, and thankful to Gary for helping me understand, look, Dan, where you're going to shine is when you're making a difference for people, right? You're going to shine if you're making a difference. You're going to shine if you can do it your own way. And you're going to shine when you're helping people make sense of things. So it took me, it's reinventing myself. The challenge was, okay, you don't have that anymore. So what do you have? And I think for me, it was learning to be able to live with what's the worst that can happen. And I share that when in my keynote, I talk about what's the worst that can happen. So, you know, my wife and I sat down, and I'm blessed with an amazing wife who is so supportive, who is willing to say, okay, well, what are we going to do if this happens? And so we sat down and we had that conversation. So think about this, you and tell me your husband's name again.
Drew.
You and Drew have this conversation. What's the worst that could happen? So we're blessed that we live in the same town as our parents. My mom passed away 3 years ago, and Sophia got to see her for her until she was 10 years old. If we hadn't lived here, because we also lived out of town before when I was managing that entire sales force across the U.S. So we lived at home. Our parents are here. So let's say this coaching and speaking business just goes south and you make zero money and we lose our house.
Right.
That's the worst that could happen, right? We lose our house. What happens? Well, our parents love us. And they literally would love it if we lived with them. They literally, now they would be, it would, you know, they live in my in-laws house was built in the 70s. So it's like, it's 1,500 square feet if it's any, but there's 4 bedrooms. We could take one, you know. And would we be crowded? Yes. But would we be happy? They would be so happy to have us there. And so would my dad, especially since my mom passed away. So we're not going to be homeless. So we think about that. Think about how many people in this world don't have that. We don't have a safety net of family who loves them, who would take them in. I do. And both of my in-laws and my dad own their homes. They're not going to lose their homes. And, you know, we're not anywhere close to losing our home. You know, the other great thing is you take a look at that worst case scenario. If we had to sell our home, we have so much equity in it. We could, that we could go buy a house that with the equity that we have, that we wouldn't have a house payment. So then guess what? Now you've got another level of freedom. So it's understanding that the decisions we make lead to freedom. And I think freedom is I think the key word. So when you can answer that question, you know, and I shared this at the Global Warrior Conference, when I was able to say in Army Ranger School, what's the worst that could happen? And I could live with that, all of a sudden it got easier. Life gets easier when you can live with the worst that could happen. All of a sudden, you have a confidence about you. You're like, hey, I can, you know what? You can say no. You know, and I tell this, you know, in sales, I learned this in sales. The other thing is you can learn to walk away from bad clients when you have a confidence. And how you build confidence is by having a funnel of really good clients. Right? So if a bad client comes along that's too demanding, isn't happy with the way you're doing things, and you don't want to work with them. They're not the people you want to work with. You can walk away because you have really good clients in the funnel that are going to pay your price, see the value in what you do, and work with you the way that you like to work with them. So those are all part of building that network of people like you, people that I love having conversations with, people that I literally have hugged in person. And you gave me a virtual hug a little while ago. People that I love what they're doing, and they're making a difference in the world. So guess what? There's a lot of ideal clients for me in this world. There's 8 billion people in this world. So I don't have to put up with a bad client. We can choose to not work together so that I can work, because if I choose to not work with that client who's too demanding, too tough, or too unrealistic, guess what? It leaves room for me to work with an ideal client who's just waiting for me. But I don't have time for them because I'm working with the wrong client. So I have to get rid of that wrong client so I can find the right client.
I love that. And it's true in anything. I mean, honestly, that Pareto rule, the 80-20, that like sometimes 80% of your time is taken up with 20% of the clients or whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's true in your medical practice, right? 20% of your clients give you 80% or taking 80% of your time. And so it's great that you brought that up. One of the best books I've read this year is 10X is easier than 2X. And, 10Xing your business is going to be easier than 2Xing, because when we're thinking about 2Xing, we're really thinking about doubling the work that we do. Right. So for me, I've got to do twice as many keynote talks, or I've got to find twice as many clients. Well, if I do that, I'm going to spend twice as much time and I'm going to travel twice as much, doing twice as many keynotes. But if I want to 10X, if I want to scale, that takes something different. I've got to really get outside the box. I've got to really look at, okay, where are my top 20% clients, right? And work with those people. And fire the 80%ers, because the 80%ers are going to give you lots of trouble. So finding those, but having that confidence too, that what you bring is of so much value that people are paying for it. And when you do that, then those, guess what those 20%ers do? They tell their friends about you. And now you've got more 20%ers. I was listening to, gosh, do you remember the guy who started P90X?
Yeah, I love him. Tony Horton.
He was on my good friend David McGlennon's podcast. So David sent me a text and he says, Dan, you got to listen to this interview with Tony Horton. And think about how he started. I don't know if you've heard his story.
I don't know his story.
He was in Hollywood because he graduated college, had taken a weightlifting class in college. And then he went off to Hollywood to become an actor. Well, what happens to you when you go to Hollywood to become an actor? There's 100,000 people trying to do the same thing. So he was struggling, but on a set of a movie or a tryout, somebody said he was introduced to Tom Petty. And Tom Petty was about to go on tour. And because he was in Hollywood, Tony had started getting in. Somebody told him, hey, you got to lose some weight. You got to look better than what you're looking. Nobody wants to hire a fat actor or so, whatever. Somebody was really direct with him. So he got in really good shape and really fast. So his friend thought, hey, that's really good. How'd you do that? He said, well, I did this, this, and this. Told him what he did. And well, Tom Petty was about to go on tour. And this guy says, hey, my friend just got in really good shape in like 2 weeks. You should talk to him. So he became Tom Petty's trainer. Well, then that led to Tom Petty. Tom Petty got in really good shape, went on tour, looked really good. Everybody was like, how'd you do that so fast? They introduced him. He had it was the A-list of Hollywood in the late 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And he was training all these people. And that's how he got his start. So because he lived into it, he said, all I had was one weightlifting class I took in college. I wasn't even a certified trainer, but these Hollywood types were, and he was making a difference. And then of course, one of his clients was somebody who was into the internet, or not, it wasn't internet marketing. Back then it was the multi-level marketing. And so that's how he got it was sending out DVDs with the workouts, right? And then he sent those out. And then during COVID, that's when P90X really took off and he was able to go onto the internet. And so he's incredibly successful, but it started with the very simple thing. He just did it, right? Hey, I know how to get in shape. And when people asked him, hey, will you train me? He said, yes. And then he built it. So we have that rule at Why Not Leadership. If a client needs something and we want to help them, we'll do it. We'll figure it out, and then we'll build it after we have, because if the demand's there, we can build it, right? Yeah. We're so much more powerful than we think we are. The knowledge is out there, right? You know this, Dr. Tanya. You've got patients that everything we need to know about how to eat well, how to be healthy is out there. Dr. Google or Dr. Chat GPT will tell us exactly what we need to do. So all we need is a guide. Someone like Dr. Tanya that's going to guide us and help us and keep us accountable. So even as coaches, we need a coach that's going to hold us accountable to make sure, hey, did you exercise today? Did you eat well today? Did you spend time with family? Did you spend time with God? What did you smile today? Right? I love your signature on your email says, I don't laugh because I'm happy. Sometimes I laugh to make myself happy, right? That's important. It's mindset. Mindset is so important. And I think you've got a great grasp on that.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you for your impact. I did have one final question. If you can share a client story of someone you worked with and just maybe, share with some of their struggles and how you help them to overcome, and just kind of your biggest breakthrough for them.
Yeah.
And then also where are you heading for the future? Because we definitely want to follow you and keep abreast of all the major, main things you're going to be doing as well.
Absolutely. It's hard to pick one client, but I will tell you, I was working with a coach in Australia, and she was a fantastic. She's written a book, incredibly talented. She talks about the codes, how women and men are different. We're wired differently. And I wish I could remember the exact name of the book. But one of the things she was struggling with was just confidence. And this is someone who, I want to learn from you, right? I think it was the gender code. I'll come back to it, and I'll send you an email and you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But we had been working together, and she was going to work with a big client. And she's like, I don't know that I can, I don't know how to present this to him. And I said, well, what is it that you want to get? And so we worked, and we've worked on what she was strongest at, right? What is it that you're best at? So don't show them what they want. Show them what you're best at and see if that's what they want.
Right.
And so we went through her presentation, and we looked at, okay, how is it that we can present it in a way that they see your gifts, right? And then they can take advantage of them if they are a fit. And we gave her a language so she could speak about herself in a way that she could be, like you said, put your chest out, put your heart out, and just be confident. And so it was really cool because she was working with a company in Australia, and she had, and we worked with her very closely, myself and my team. We helped her build her presentation. We helped her practice. We helped her put out a good message. That was also client-centered. That was the other part. It's not about us, right? It's about your client. So make it about them, but let them know who you are. So it's a delicate balance. What was really great is she went into that presentation with lots of confidence. And if you go to my website, you'll see her testimonial. She came back and she was like, Dan, they didn't just hire me. Now I'm doing all of Europe for them. So she got the job in Australia, but she also got to work with their teams in Europe because somebody from the Europe team got to see her presentation and said, we need this. So she now is working with this company at a much higher level than she was. And she was just planning on doing this one small leadership team. And so for me, helping somebody understand who they are, understand their strengths, understand how they bring their gifts to the world, and to be able to say it. A lot of times clients will tell me that in the self-awareness work that we do with YOS, they say, you know what, I knew this about myself. So I'm sure Tanya knew that she loves to make a difference. She likes to keep things simple, and she likes to deliver things that are out of the box and different. You've probably known that about yourself. What we do is we help you put that into words so that you can express it if you need to express it in 30 seconds, if you need to express it in 10 seconds, or if you have a whole hour to talk about what it is that you bring to the world. How is it that working with you is going to be different than working with the other doctor down the street? One of the things I believe is if you tell people what you do, they lump you in with everyone else who does what you know. You're a doctor. I know lots of doctors. So I'm going to compare you to them based on your degrees, your years of experience, how many patients you've helped. Well, that's not what's important. What's important is, why do you do what you do? When you tell people why you do what you do, you attract people because they like hearing that. That's a language that's different. So if you tell them why you do what you do, then they can say, ooh, I resonate with what Dr. Tanya just said, and I'm going to go sign up to be her patient.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you for that. I honestly, when I was looking at your site, we were supposed to do this a little while back. So I was like, I didn't remember all the testimonials, but they were all just stunning and just speaking from the heart, about how amazing you are. And you have the same why for contribution. So I know for you, it's to really make a huge impact and make leaders, which is, just amazing, have them lead and change the world, really transform. I've listened to a few of your podcasts and I just love them because it really, one of the doctors, he's literally changing the world with his MRI scans and just looking for visceral fat, the fat around the organs to really, it's preventive, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because my, what was your how? So the challenge. And then we almost are aligned with our, the why leadership, on the YOS. So I was going to ask if people did want to do this inventory or questionnaire, how they would do that. And also just how to get a hold of you if they are looking, because you just have so much golden nuggets, so much to offer people. How can people reach you? And I can put these in the links as well.
Yeah, please do. So, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Dan Dominguez. You can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Dominguez at whynotleadership.com, or Dan Dominguez at whynotleadership.com is my email. You can send me an email. Our website is www.whynotleadership.com. So you can find us there. And, follow our podcast, the Lead Different podcast. Dr. Tanya Gold is going to be on. We're gonna schedule that as soon as we get done here. But I love that you asked that question, because if you're looking to discover your why, just go to my website. There's a link to it. You can actually do it yourself. And there's a difference, right? There's two things you can do. You can discover your why. You can go and find it. If you want to activate it, then you get connected with someone like me who's certified in that process, and I'll activate it for you. That's what we did with Dr. Tanya. That's what we did with Gigi. That's what we did with Joe Espejo, who we met at the conference together. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm doing with Renee, who's also somebody who I met at the conference. I love helping people activate that part of their life so that they can live into it. So those are all the different ways you can get a hold of me, and I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much for, giving us your time, because I know you are very busy with all your clients and all the major impacts you're doing, and the love that you just imbue to everyone, because it's so palpable. I love your I say infectiousness in a healthy way, which is that you're just full of life, and you can see that you're living your purpose, and it is palpable. And I just feel honored and privileged to have you on the show. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you, Dr. Tanya. This has been such a great connection. I want to thank Gigi Sabat for bringing us together at that Global Warrior Conference in December. I'm already signed up for next year. I think we're doing it at a different place. I can't wait to see you again, to see the rest of the people that are there, and the new people.
Yes.
Connections. Life is about time and people and connections and conversations. So I'm blessed to have you in my circle. So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah. That means a lot. And the latest studies have shown, like with longevity, besides the eating well and the movement, the mental relaxation, adequate rest and sleep, water, it is so important to have that social connection with others. And the nice part is we can do it through a Zoom or StreamYard or, podcast. There's many ways to connect to other people through a phone call, but obviously in person is always great too. And that's why I love that leadership conference, so we can see you too. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will see you in, I think it was in September of next year. We'll see you again. I can't wait to see you in person again. And I can't wait to see you when you're on my podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fun Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Tanya Gold, your happiness doctor. Stay tuned for more uplifting and inspiring episodes to live your best life. Make it fun so it'll get done. You're so much more than a diagnosis. Remember, you're not alone, and your life and your health matters.